What's up, guys? I just discussed the topic of Therianism, and I'm feeling like I need to talk about something else. And that something else is going to be the History Channel and some of the shows that they have that I find some issue with. Excuse me while I adjust myself. Excuse me! Okay, so, I like to watch TV shows over and over and over and over and over again. And one of the shows that I'm currently watching again is Sons of Anarchy, which has prompted some questions for me. So I decided to look into motorcycle clubs, specifically in the one percenter portion. Um, Now, if you don't know, there are many different motorcycle clubs. There are motorcycle groups, there are owner clubs, there are enthusiast clubs, ranging from anything from street bikes to cruiser bikes to specifically Harley Davidson people, Yamaha people, whatever people. Um, and a while back, I started watching that show Gangland because I had A&E on cable. So I started watching Gangland, and then when Gangland showed up on Netflix, I started watching a lot of Gangland because I have this interest in criminal elements, mainly from a psychological perspective. I like to figure out why people do what they do. Um, and one of my biggest things when I was in school was studying serial killers and sociopaths as opposed to psychopaths, and what makes them do what they do. I wanted to know why people do what they do, specifically the violent ones. Because the idea of hatred and violence, it's so deep-seated, and a lot of people have very different reasons. So I wanted to know. So I started looking into the show Gangland after I started watching a lot of A&E biography. So this will be the third time. I'm in the middle of Sons of Anarchy now. I'm watching it for the third time. And just for anybody who has any questions, I've seen the show ABC is Lost. I've seen that, I think 11 times now. I've seen NBC's The Office 22 times. Um, Breaking Bad I've seen 6 times. Sopranos 3. So I like to watch a lot of TV shows, and I don't just sit around and watch TV shows. I do other things while I'm watching the show. So a while back I would make wooden pipes, or I would make hats, or I would make stuff and watch videos and watch shows while I'm doing it to keep me occupied. Like for example, in high school I used to rebuild bicycles, so I would watch a TV show while I was rebuilding a bicycle. The Wonder Years too, I saw that a couple of times, and the first time that I watched the Wonder Years from beginning to end, um, I made this really awesome Churchwarden style pipe. It was modeled after a Gandalf pipe from Lord of the Rings. It was a mix between a Gandalf pipe and the Strider pipe, the Aragorn pipe, and it was beautiful. It was 14 inches long, all sugar maple, beautiful, beautiful piece. Anyway, so I started watching Gangland a lot, and I started thinking that I had this information correct, and so I would talk to people that I knew that lived in a more like heavier urban setting than I did, and we would get to talking like about MS-13, or we get to talk about the Crips and the Bloods and the war from the East Coast to the West Coast. We would get to talking about the motorcycle clubs and these different things, and he would tell me, "You're being stupid. What are you talking about?" And I say, "Oh, I saw it on the History Channel." And he'd say, "The History Channel is full of shit." And at the time, I didn't understand exactly what he was talking about. And then I got to thinking about it for a minute. Um, Go like do a search for Gangland, right? And specifically look for the one percenter motorcycle groups. You know, they call them gangs. Um, but out of respect for the organizations, it is a motorcycle club. Okay. Now, what individuals may do may be beyond the law, However, demonizing the entire organization as a whole and saying that they are a bunch of evil pricks or that they're a bunch of criminals or that they're a bunch of murderers and arsonists and whatever, I think is a little bit unfair to say. Nobody knows everybody. So I started noticing that they had these videos that were specifically targeting like the Hells Angels MC and the Pagans MC or the Mongols Nation versus the Warlocks or some, whatever combination. And every one of them, they started off,
This is the story of the Hells Angels, the most vicious, brutal motorcycle group ever to grace the land.
and they would talk about all these different shows and all these different groups of people. And in every single one of them, they would say, this is the most vicious, brutal, blah, 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 whatever it happened to be, whether it was a street gang or a motorcycle gang or like, a gang of toddlers that just refuse to take a nap, and they're the most vicious, brutal toddlers to ever see this preschool, and History Channel would make all this stuff. And the last one that I watched, I think, who was it? It was either the Breed Motorcycle Club out of Pennsylvania, or it was part of the Hells Angels. And they had this guy. He's like, oh, the interviewer. Oh, are you afraid of repercussions? And he says, Nah, I'm not afraid of repercussions at all. People, they'll kill somebody because of this, or they'll kill somebody something that. Whatever. I don't really care. They didn't blur out his face. They didn't do anything. The next word out of this guy's mouth is, oh yeah, I was involved in this motorcycle group for 20 something years, and oh, I was an FBI informant. You would never say that on History Channel. If you were working covertly in some organization that was under suspicion by law enforcement, you would not go on the freaking History Channel and say, oh, this is my face. This is what I look like. This is the group that I was involved with, and this is what I did when I was in there. And I'm telling you because I'm a federal agent disguising as a member of this group. It really called into question some validity for the History Channel and the Science Channel and the Discovery Channel and these other people. Okay? Now, what this video is about just blindly accepting the idea that you find on major network television. Now, a lot of people might know a little bit of the backstory behind Dual Survival or Les Stroud's Survivor Man versus Bear Grylls and his show um, Man vs. Wild or Man Woman Wild or whatever it happened to be. So I've been watching Les Stroud Survivor Man for years now. That's another one of the shows that I just kind of compulsively watch. Um, Les Stroud is a man who has been a staunch, hardcore, badass survivalist for years and years and years. And no, he was not a member of like the Navy SEALs or whatever that Bear Grylls was a part of in Her Majesty's Army, but the guy married his wife and they built their own house and they lived off the land for years until they started having children and then they moved to suburbia and he has a documentary um, about how he took his family and they went off the grid. I believe that's the title. I think it's called Off the Grid by Les Stroud. And they show all of everything, all of his struggles, all of everything that happened to him and his family. And so what I started to notice was that depending on the network and depending on the popularity of the person that they're doing a show on or the number or the people that they're doing a show on, they will give you certain information that is very theatrical. They'll give you information that is very gripping, and they give you information that is going to try and pull you into that story. So in this documentary that I was watching about this particular motorcycle group, um, when the guy said, "Oh, I work for the FBI and I'm still involved with this club," I'm thinking, no, 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 you're not. And I just started thinking about it a little bit more. That every time the History Channel has an episode of Gangland, they say that this gang is so much more vicious and brutal and horrible than the next gang. And, when you go on in these wars between, or like viewer wars between Survivor Man and Bear Grylls, well, I remember one of the first episodes of Man vs. Wild that I watched. Bear Grylls jumped out of a freaking helicopter, landed in the Everglades, reached into a tree, ripped out a snake, bit out its spine, then proceeded to knife to death like an alligator or a crocodile. He shoved a knife in the back of its neck, cut its tail off, threw it over his shoulder, and then went walking. And I'm thinking to myself, This is not survival. What you're showing these people is a bunch of bullshit. The same as when you made it like a urine enema. He stuffed a tube up his butthole and then sailed away off into the happy merry distance. Now you take these same two circumstances, right? Now Les Stroud did one where he was lost at sea, and he also did one in the Georgian swamps. Georgian Swamps was in season 1, I believe, of Survivor Man, and in that one he brought you through everything that he had to do. No camera crew, no support team, nothing. Now you take Bear Grylls, and he does this thing that's so grandiose and so like completely out of the norm, and people get like loads of interest towards this guy. Remember, I was flipping through the channels one day, and I saw him on Oprah, and he jumped out of the ceiling and rappelled down a line to the couch on Oprah, and he's like, "Hello, Oprah. My name's Bear Grylls, and I'm here to talk about survival and how I can stick a tube up my bum and get an enema, and so I can have some liquid in the system." People, come on. Seriously? Now, speaking in terms of the Science Channel and Discovery Channel as a whole, I think a lot of the information that they have is very helpful and is really cool. However, I don't think that stating that, and especially the ones about space. I watched this one where they said, like, oh, black holes have never been found, and black holes and this, and black holes that, and then a couple of years later, I'm watching these same exact people say, oh, I've never said that, black holes always existed, and we just never really knew, blah, 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 and they just kind of tried to sweep it under the rug that they were doing documentaries and like multi-million-dollar funded research projects where, 3 years later, when someone decides that their head was up their ass, now that they can just, completely turn around and rewrite the history books. It's not possible. You can't do that. It just doesn't make any sense. Have some freaking continuity, people. There's more to history than just what you feel like saying. That actually leads me into one of my next podcasts. It's going to be on a very long research project I've been doing on what people will generally believe between the existence of Sasquatch and the existence of extraterrestrials. And I'll leave you with that. I'm not going to tell you because this has been a video that I've been preparing to do for the better part of 5 or 6 years now, and I really want to I want to collect my thoughts and give you all like a proper video and a proper podcast about this, and that may be the very first video that I do when I have my whole new setup. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe. I really like seeing support from viewers. I don't really care about, the number of subscribers that I have, but just to know that someone's saying like, oh, this guy, he has some really cool information. That's why I want to have subscribers, and that's why I like to see the likes and the comments. It's just, generating a buzz. I like to have conversations with people. So even if you don't like and subscribe or whatever, or go to my Facebook page at Facebook /Meep Truth Radio, um, leave me a comment. Give me an idea. I have so many ideas all the time that it's hard for me to just pick one to do a video on. So if you want to hear about anything at all, ask me a question. You can contact me here, direct message me here, direct message me on Facebook, like the page, subscribe, whatever it is you have to do. Just give me your ideas because I'd really like to know. And thank you very much for watching Meep Radio, and stay tuned for the next.